That's the post-punk funk of a certain ratio. Formed in the late 1970s and veterans of the factory record scene, the trio is still going strong now. Their new album, 1982, is just released, and it's being acclaimed as their best since, well, the 80s. Here is percussionist Donald Johnson to tell us why it's called 1982 and why you should be dancing.
The title's from Martin. Was when we were constructing the track, we were kind of building the track up. Martin played drums, I was playing bass, and we got a little semblance of the track together, and it was quite good. So we then went upstairs into the control room, and Martin started playing around with the vocoder. Me and Jez were just sat there, just talking normally as he was, doing his normal thing to go through it. And they were just running the track. And just as a test signal, literally as a test to check that it was okay, he just went 1982. Me and Jess flew over to him. Wow, that's amazing! That sounds great. Go do that again. Do that. And he just stood there then for the next 5 minutes, going 1982. Getting the inflections within the vocoder right. Yeah. And that's how it came about, and we just decided to leave it. I mean, we did struggle a little while, thinking that people are going to think it's going to be nostalgic because we've got a history and going through there. But I think people have got it. They understand that we're not trying to be retro-reflective. We're trying to move forward.
And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging your legacy, as such as it is. So what the heck?
What we acknowledge it, but we don't wallow in it.
Right. Yeah. And with that in mind, you've got a new gal on board who's doing quite a bit of the singing. Why don't you tell me a little bit about her as
well? We hooked up with a brilliant singer called Ellen Beth Abdi. She brought the age limit down of the band considerably, so to came on board. She's a very talented musician who sings, plays keyboards, plays flute, plays percussion. She knows every single musician in this town,
right?
Everyone. She knows what's going on, everything, and she's just great to get on with. She's a wonderful kind of person to be around. She's very funny.
Right. I had her playing the flute on a thing called Tier 3.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. We heard the flute. Yeah. Right. Tier 3. Tier 3 was a club in New York that ACR played in back in the day. It's in back in the day, probably 81, 82, early 80s.
Right. The Blood Club and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you read the Beasties book, I think they go to see us there. They see us at the Tier 3.
Right.
So that's the link, Tier 3.
And what memories do you have of that time? It must have been having a ball, right?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was like, someone would give you the key to the toy box and off you go. It was wonderful seeing all this, just an explosion of everything, an explosion of talent, an explosion of art, an explosion of people expressing themselves.
Right.
Everything from poets to musicians. It was just wonderful.
Right.
Just a great and lucky time for us, because you know how these things work. A while back it was Bowie in Berlin, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he was there with those different types, and then it moves along somewhere else. It was Ireland a few years back, and then it was, you know what I mean? So it's just luck of the draw where you are on the map at that time.
Yep. Well, New York was pretty vibrant back in the late 70s, early 80s. No wave scene was going on, and you guys mentioned Jean Basquiat and folks like that. So you must have been pretty into that stuff. So the opening track, Samo, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Kind of touches on that. So why is that it? So the front of the record.
Jimmy the Best was on his back to the sucker punch of his childhood tracks. 5'5" Freddy was holding the ball. Never can have too much fun. Bow like this with all the big money. Same old says, not tonight, honey. Jean Michel and Andy was right. All you mothers were too uptight.
It's at the front of the record because it sits well the way that we kind of sequence things. You know, we look to sequence. Martin gave a great description recently about the whole way that we do what we do. We still regard the record as side A and side B.
Of course.
So when we're putting it together, we work out what starts side A, what finishes side A, what starts side B, what finishes side B. So basically, Samo started side A.
Okay. Very good. And it's followed by a track with a rapper named Chunky.
Yeah.
Who's he? And how did you grab him to?
Yo. Spirit dancing, I sniff for madness. Question and chaser, sink full of answers. Loved by a stranger, choked by the anger. Life at the station, waiting for patience. No one's reflecting, we're all reflections. Purse full of changes, then make some changes. Come land a spaceship, let's go escaping. Drugs make it easy, fly far away from.
Oh, Chunky's been around for a little while. Again, he's friends of Ellen, but he's friends of Martin's son, Daniel Muscrop. He's friends of his, so he's kind of known in and around. For quite a few years, we've talked about having the right kind of rap on doing something if we were going to do it, but it had to be the right kind. We didn't want it to not kind of represent us, and Chunky kind of did that perfectly because he still retains his Mancunian accent when talking and putting things through. Not that an accent matters, but it did matter on this. We wanted, if you're going to do it for the first time, do it about your thing.
Sure.
Of course, we can branch out and have other things after that. You know, people with all kinds of different accents. It'd be great if we decide to go down that route. But yeah, it was bringing, it's our flavor of continuing to bring in young talent from, just doing something completely different. No one expects ACR to do anything with a rap in and around it.
So that's a good
reason
right there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like a good reason to kind of wake people up. You know, in the middle of doing something, you have this beautiful neo soul voice, and then all of a sudden you have this you have this edgy kind of urban, beautiful linguistic array of words coming at you, and then you can go back.
So it's pretty obvious that the three of you are still very creative and very curious about what you're doing and pushing forward. What do you think drives that between you?
Curiosity and the ability to embrace change. I think as we're getting older, we're learning. I know what I've learned anyway. I've learned one thing that's really, really important at this age and being in a band and trying to maintain a band, which is, and it's an advice I'm going to give everyone everywhere because I've just learned it, which is learning how to get out of your own way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And because everybody arrives playing instruments, doing things with their own paradigm. Yeah, you know what you're good at, you know what you're not too good at, you know what you're clever at, so sometimes you need to push that barrier. I'm quite lucky in the fact that I've got, guys that'll say to me, I'll go downstairs, do a great take of drums, think it's absolutely the shizzle. I'll walk upstairs and Martin will go, I think you can do that better. Like, what? Nah, I think you can do this, go, yeah, you can do that better than that. We'll keep that one, but let's try it, and that's the whole idea. But rather than me then argue about whether the take is right or wrong, I trust those ears behind the glass.
Right.
Of course I'll go, oh, da, 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 and then go, but I'll always go back down and go and try another one to see see what was what. And in the same time, the guys will stop me if I'm trying to do too much, in the sense that, trying to do another take. It never really works like that. I only probably do one. I'll probably do
Right.
three takes max if it was something that was really difficult.
Right.
But we usually get it. The first one's a run through. The second one's usually the take. Because we're trying to keep it fresh. But if, for instance, I was too busy or doing things that wasn't there, they're not scared of saying leave that out or do whatever. And I don't get perturbed about the fact that it's not in there, because I also know that I can put it back in live.
There you go. And they can't stop you.
So it's little things like that, about learning not to get in your own way and understanding each other. And that whole, people always ask us about why we've maintained being this long. And basically, I think regardless of all the, where if there is petulance, if there is arguments, if there is fallouts, if there is all that, the one thing that we're all unified on is the music and making the music better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so every thought that comes along that makes that a better place to be in, we go with that regardless. And that's probably why we've been able to sustain this length of time together.
Cool. Now, speaking of drummers, I see you have a track called Afro Dizzy, which I think samples Tony Allen, at least, if I've read correctly.
Yes, you have.
And Ellen wrote the lyrics to it kind of spontaneously. So tell me how that, from your perspective, how did that track come together? Where did it start and where did it end?
Release yourself. Serve your time. Now there's whistles to wet. A place in the crowd. Dancing too often and singing too loud.
Well, it started with, it was strange really, because again, one of those simpatico things that happen. Me and Martin, quite separately, without speaking to each other, were listening to Tony Allen, different records, different things completely.
Yep.
And we were just listening to Tony Allen. And I think somewhere along that lines, we both started a conversation on Tony Allen and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we found out that he'd done this sample pack. Yeah. So we were listening again through all of that, and we were like, a young child that's scared of going back and asking the parent, "Can I have another ice cream?" That kind of thing. We really wanted to be able to work with Tony, but we couldn't pull up the courage to kind of to do it. We didn't know how to approach what to do. We just felt. Anyway, we missed that window, that opportunity, because Tony passed away. Yeah. So our thing then was to use his sample pack, one of the samples from the pack that he created as him.
Right.
Again, as a drummer, it was kind of right up my street. Some drummers would have a problem because they're not playing on it.
Right.
That was absolute bliss for me. Great. One of the top drummers in the world playing on our record, and I get to sit in the back. Knock yourself out, guys, all day. And then, once we come up with the riff and the music and the groove and all that kind of thing, I think that was the first thing we decided to work on with Ellen.
Right.
After we'd pulled it all together. And I remember Ellen came to the studio. She bought loads of goodies. She introduced herself, and we just clicked kind of immediately. And that track was done in that day.
Nice.
Just literally on meeting with each other.
Very
and our relationship has gone on from there.
Cool. Now, see, it's followed by Holy Smoke, which kind of pays tribute to JB and Chaka Khan and Bootsy and Prince.
It's a huge eclectic mix of all those kind of hard funk things that go on in there.
James will make it funky, Chaka makes it right. Prince will keep you dancing till the middle of the night. We're just getting started, so hold on tight. Everything about this is starting to feel right.
That track came around as just wanting something to be really, really kind of simple and powerful. You know, it's got a Bootsy vibe to it as well. Yep. It's got, it's Bootsy, Prince. I'm trying to remember Chaka Khan, James Brown.
Yep.
It's how do you slam all that together? You know, it's also. It's got a bit of a guy called Tom Brown. I don't know if you know Tom Brown, Funkin' for Jamaica. Do you know that track?
No.
Yeah? No, you don't know it. Okay, well, that's also pretty good kind of dance track. It's got a kind of vibe from there. So it was all that, but it's at the other end of that track. The other side of it, the verse is that, but the other side of it is quite political and quite daggered towards lockdown and the way we had lockdown here.
Right. Yes. Well, we watched it from here, and there was some head shaking going on and some eye rolling.
So there was when doing the lyrics, because I did the lyrics to that one. I wanted to play with the lyrics, but also have the lyrics have some content that had some strength. So that's why it says. Sounds like something dirty, about to take flight. Again, two ratio tracks. The all-night party goes on all night, all night. Again, it was that whole thing of the government being able to party while everybody else was, told not to. People having their folks pass away and them not being able to see them and all this while these. So it was quite barbed as far as that's concerned, but kind of kept in the same flavor. You know, it was almost the wrapping it in a bit of a velvet glove, but still having the words have a sting to them when you're listening to them. But I also wanted it to sound like a party record that you could play in a club, and reference ACR because it's referencing those titles of ACR.
Gotcha.
But then put them into modern day context, as you know. So I think it worked quite well.
Is there some saxophone in there as well?
Oh God, I think so. Yes, yeah. It's a massive eclectic mix of all sorts of percussion and groove and just everything, and all hitting down on the one because that was James Brown's on the one.
Yeah. Well, I had the pleasure of making a record with some of his band members, and Clyde Stubblefield was the drummer. Bootsy was playing bass on it, and we had just put him in a big room. Bobby Bird and all these people, and just let them play for a day and made the record out of that. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah, man. That's what you do. You don't get involved. You just close the door and go, close the door, press record, and just leave them to it.
Yeah. Now, I see you wrap up the album. You're talking about self-referencing the Ballad of ACR. My personal favorite band, it was a band called Mott the Hoople, was notified.
Oh, yes, no Mott the Hoople,
yeah. They had the Ballad of Mott the Hoople on my favorite album of theirs. So tell me, what inspired you to write about yourselves?
We went to New York, not much for talking. We flew to LA just for the day, but we always came back to here to stay.
That was Jez again. Jez was being very... I've actually got a video of that somewhere, which I need to dig out. It was just Jez. Jez had this little small acoustic guitar that he was playing around with, and he tuned it a certain way. So he wasn't messing around with chords and everything. And he was being really simple with it. And he just sat on this... he just kind of sat on this high chair, and he was just noodling away to himself. And he was doing, we went to New York, just, you could see it kind of coming out. Now, again, about not getting in anybody's way, you let that just kind of happen. It was just going. Went to New York, flew to LA just for a day, all that kind of thing. And when we kind of got that, we didn't have the title then as a ballad of ACR. Again, it was Jez that wanted to call it the Ballad of. Yeah. Because we've never set ACR in. We've done it on the front of an album, as in ACR, MCR, but we've never done it on the inside.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty good that we've got something with the title on the inside. And then, so once that was all constructed and came together, the middle bit, which is kind of my favorite bit in that that's one of my favorite songs on the album because it doesn't have any drums while Jez is singing and all that kind of thing. It has absolutely nothing. I don't think it has a bass drum in it either. I think it's just all snare, hat, and the top kit like the old jazzers used to play. You wouldn't hear a bass drum or anything back in those days.
Yep.
And then that whole middle bit, which is just that lovely laid back, smoky jazz groove mixed with a modern day pop song.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it works really well because you just don't hear those two genres linking together. You won't hear them on the same radio station. You won't hear them played in the same room at any given time. So it was nice to do something that was completely different for us as well.
Yep. Now, every time you mention Jez's name, you remind me of a friend of mine who might be a friend of yours. I'm not sure. Jazz Coleman. Do you know him from Killing Joke?
Yes, that's Coleman. Yes.
I just got a notification yesterday that he's in town here in Auckland, and I'm going to give him a call. So, do you look at him as a contemporary and Killing Joke? They're still together, still doing their thing, and they kind of erupted from the same time and place.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They're still, they're still very much on it. You know what I mean? They're still, their records and their live appearances and their things just as tough as it always has been, which is great.
Yep.
Yeah, we played with Killing Joke a long time ago at the Lyceum Ballroom. Right. Yeah, long time ago. It's on famous posters somewhere with the whole thing. I'm sure we met them a couple of times, but it's a few years back. But yeah, great contemporaries.
Right. So the record's out for you tomorrow. What are you going to do? What's the plan?
Well, tomorrow we've got a signing in Manchester. We've got a Q&A.
Right.
We've got a Q&A, and then we're going to have a signing after that. We then travel to London and do the same thing again. And then we head back to Nottingham, Rough Trading Nottingham, and do the same thing there. So the weekend, really, it's kind of a big launch weekend with signings and kind of meet and greets and just talking about stories. But what's really brilliant is we've got 3 great moderators. We've got a friend of ours called Chris Hawkins off the Radio 6 Music. He's a big kind of supporter of ACR, but he's well up on his music everywhere, and he's well up on us. So he's going to be one of the moderators. We have one of the guys from Mute, funny enough, Paul, who kind of looks after us and looks after everything at Mute. He's being one of the moderators now. He knows where all the bodies are buried.
Oh, cool.
So that should be really good fun. That's the very last one.
Yep.
And the one in between is from another great supporter of ours, a guy called John Kennedy from Radio X. He's another kind of great guy that plays all kinds of eclectic music, knows music. He's very on the cusp of everything as far as doing things there. So we've got 3 great moderators, which we're kind of the anticipation of them talking to us and saying we know they know stuff. Yeah. So there's no hiding on that.
You can't beat around the bush.
No.
All right. And are there live shows in the works?
Oh yeah. Then after that, in April, when do we start? I think it's April 20th. We start at the top of the country, come down. I think there's 8 or 9 shows.
Right.
That we're going to be doing, and then after that, we're going to have a little bit of a holiday. Then we come back again. Typical Ratio. We've got the next album ready and demoed, ready to go. That was signed off. I think the beginning of Jan or the end of Jan. Anyway, there's another 11 songs, cool. Kind of brand new songs ready to go. We're going to be working with a producer on that one, a guy called Dan Carey. Do you know of Dan Carey?
I recognize the name. Yeah.
Dan's done some awesome work in the UK and around. He's well known everywhere. He's a big fan of Ratio. We kind of like him. It's the first time we're going to be going in to work with a producer since Force, I think. Right. Force was the last time we worked with our friend Stuart James. Yeah.
Right.
So that was what, 84, 86, somewhere around there. So last time was mid-80s. So we're looking forward to that.
Yep.
Then there's going to be festivals kind of at the latter start. They run, as you know, to the summer to the latter end. And then we're just going to kind of take it from there. We're doing lots of other little plans for different places in the world, seeing if that kind of comes off. All depends how the album's doing where. And
I would urge you to consider Down Under, because New Zealand Kiwis love that whole post-punk era. That's kind of where the Flying Nun, Dunedin sound erupted from, and it's kind of the basis of everything down here. And you're definitely part of it.
Well, we would love to come to your part of the world. You know what I mean? It'd be awesome to be able to go and play there, because we never have done.
Right.
We've never. The closest we've been to that hemisphere is Japan.
Right. You got a long way to go yet, then.
Yeah.
I might even suggest you go to Australia and do a few gigs if you want.
And then, well, if we're over that way, believe me, we're doing the whole thing. Once we enter that sort of hemisphere, we'll be, we'll be working.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you very much.
And you, my friend. Thanks very much, Mark.
Okay. Bye-bye.